is okay. The people who truly threaten the American public are not the Jose's of the world. They're the Viveks of the world. And we need a total shutdown of H-1B visa applicants. We need to rethink immigration from these Asian and Indian countries completely altogether. We have, China, India, we're talking, 2.5 billion people or thereabouts. That means millions upon millions of people with IQs above 115 who could go to undergraduate college, who could become an accountant, who could become a lawyer, who could become a doctor, who could become a businessman, become a nurse, et cetera, et cetera. They have an unending source of those smart type people, and they're not really good Americans. Vivek Ramaswamy, that is, came over here, became a con artist, effectively, pumped and dumped some unworkable senility medicine, became a multimillionaire, and now is lying to you on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast. We don't need these people. We don't really like these people. We're not really terribly impressed with these people. If you're so great, then go do something in your country. But we do want our people to basically have some sort of chance, not even at like upward mobility, but just some chance to live the good life and become an accountant, become a nurse, maybe become a doctor or a businessman or a lawyer. But if you make American citizens compete with the Viveks of the world, then that's unfair. They are going to lose that competition, in fact, because you have tens of millions of young Americans trying to make it into a comfortable middle-class life, competing against hundreds of millions of Viveks and Lees, et cetera, around the world. And Jose, who might get drunk on occasion and is a little bit rough around the edges, but merely wants to make you a burrito, I don't think is the real enemy here. And we should stop demonizing Jose, and we should start demonizing Vivek. And maybe we could have a grand operation. There was a notorious now policy called Operation Wetback.
Yes.
In the Eisenhower. I propose Operation Dryback. And we basically will go contact illegal immigrants like Jose and say, do you want to be a citizen? All right, let's make a deal. All right, you don't have to learn English. Don't worry about that. But we're going to round up and deport millions upon millions of legal immigrants with IQs above 115. And you could be involved in this project, Operation Dryback. Jose, are you willing to go all the way? And that is actually, I know I'm being kind of contrarian and a little bit outlandish, but that is how you need to think. I just don't even want to hear about like illegal immigrants anymore. When Trump was talking, at one point I tuned out when he was talking about some like almost true crime sob story about some like rape and murder or whatever. I don't even want to hear about this anymore because that's just salacious. And the fact, by the fact that it's salacious, it's kind of deceptive. Like I could tell you about some horrifying crime that occurred in this neighborhood and lead you to believe that it's some terrible place. No, that was actually a really bad thing that happened. That was really the exception that proved the rule. The thing threatening young people are high IQ legal immigrants. It's basically forcing them to compete with the world. And so whenever someone just starts talking about like the border and crime, look, fentanyl's bad. I totally get a lot of these things. I think we have a right to police this shit, and I get it. I totally get it. But on some point, I don't really want to hear it anymore because you're not facing the real fucking issue. And the real issue goes back to some of the things that Trump said even back in 2016, where it's like Americans can be dreamers. That was a kind of radical statement. And that's more radical than just calling a bunch of Mexican rapists, because they're not all rapists.
I live in Mexico, by the way. They're not. I'm in the Yucatan Peninsula, beautiful place, and very safe here. Not all of Mexico can say that, but
look, a bunch of illegals kind of rough around the edges, of course. But you've got to face the real challenge, and none of these people will own up to it. The challenge is your sons and daughters competing on a global scale with India and Asia to become accountants, nurses, businessmen, lawyers, etc. That is the threat. And if you're not talking about the real threat, then I don't really know what to say to you, because conservatives are just so goofy that like they don't want to face off against like an actual adversary. They want to like tell you a story about how this evil MS-13 gang member killed some young girl or whatever. But they don't want to face off with like real competition, because that almost seems like a little kind of mean or something, you know? Like we love our model immigrants. They're so good that, you know, Asians are so great at math and they come here and they just want to do good and become part of the middle class or whatever. At some point, you just got to say, fuck that shit.
But they're replacing the white middle class.
I'm against legal immigration. Like I'm pro illegals, more illegal immigration, pro illegals. They're great, good people. All of them. Most all of them are good people. Some might be bad. And it's really the legal immigration that is the replacement issue. And you've got to talk about that. And if you constantly lead with like MS-13, you're going to miss the big picture, which is your sons and daughters competing with the world, which is totally unfair and ridiculous. So if I had a speaking opportunity to speak the RNC, that's what I would stress.
And it's funny you mentioned accountant and nurse, because my grandmother was in